All right, so this is actually continuing on from last year's talk, which went through a bunch of bullets that what do you need for underground storage? And I used an example that checked all the boxes. And afterwards, people came up to me and asked, "Oh, how come this hasn't been converted into underground storage?" So I took a look at that to answer the question, and basically, we're going to look at how unregulated storage began and where it is today. So we'll take a look at some history. Back in 1960s, when the OEB started regulating underground storage, and over the course of about 40 years, up until one of the major milestones where unregulated storage started, NGEAR, and then there's another goalpost that I want to talk about, STAR. There was about 250 billion cubic feet of regulated storage developed, and there's three companies, three utilities that competed for these natural resources in mainly Lambton County. And after NGEAR, there was another 5 new pools that were developed, and they were for unregulated storage. And that was, again, with a handful of companies, some utilities, some not utilities, but they all were separate from the previously regulated massive amounts of storage developed by basically the ratepayer money. It wasn't the shareholders. They got paid to develop that storage before. Now it's unregulated, and they're going to get whatever benefits they can from that. Since STAR came in, which is Storage Transportation Access Rule, there was about another 20 billion cubic feet developed, but that was all through capacity of the previous developed regulated storage pools. So it wasn't anything new. It was just increasing the pressure, drilling a few more holes to get the deliverability into reservoirs that were basically developed with ratepayer money. This timeline might help explain it a little better. The goalpost of NGEAR and STAR here gives you the brackets for windows. The 40 years prior, we had almost 28 pools developed in that 40 years, and they were all regulated storage. From NGEAR out to STAR, there was about 5 new pools added in for unregulated. And then after STAR, the growth mainly was through delta pressuring of about 20 of these previously developed pools. And at the end of all this, you'll see that we started off with 3 utilities over to the left. We got some non-utilities involved in the middle, and at the end, there's only one utility that basically operates 100% of all the capacity. So with that, of course, we're going to have some winners and losers. The stakeholders that really lose here are ratepayers, landowners, and producers. The ratepayers, because, well, they paid for that asset years and years ago, and they don't see anything from the delta pressuring and selling of this unregulated storage capacity to the electric generators or whoever's using it. And also the landowners. So they are paid based on their acreage and the number of wellheads and so forth on a pool. But by taking that same storage container, now pumping more gas into it to sell in an unregulated environment, there's no benefit to them. But even worse are those landowners that have pools that aren't going to get converted to storage because of the focus on delta pressuring of existing storage pools. Then you go down to the producer. They totally lose out on this because they were the ones supplying those reservoirs in the past. Now they're not being considered at all. And it's because there's just a lot of reliance on delta pressuring existing pools. So who the winners are? Obviously, it's the utility. There is an inaccuracy here that was pointed out by somebody at the OEB. It's not plural, the utility and the shareholders. Of course, they get a lot of benefit from having a cookie cutter regulatory process. It's quick, it's cheap, just as mentioned by Peter Budd. That's a good focus on helping projects get through and to completion. And 100% of that profit is going to the company and the shareholders. One thing you may not be aware of is the huge savings that do exist going this route. You don't have to go to the regulator for designation. You don't have to have the right to inject and withdrawal all redone. This is just gravy for them. And probably the biggest savings is you don't have any base gas to buy to give you that cushion for injecting and withdrawal. And of course, having this big system all in place and just cranking up a bit of pressure in these pools, your whole system is going to supply what you need to deliver the unregulated value. And of course, the OEB does win too. Again, same thing. It's got that cookie cutter process and quick decisions. I think in the last MOP, they submitted it toward the end of the year. Last year, it's around December, I'm going to say December 1st. And they've already given them approval, I believe it was May 13th. So that's about 5 months, 6 months window. And I looked up on their website and they do have a scorecard that they try and keep track of. And that is where you got your adjudicative efficiency and red tape reduction. So they're checking their box by getting this done. And I'll explain here how this happens in next steps. Well, one of the next steps that was taken was to apply for intervener for the MOP application, this recent one. And it was denied because it wasn't specific enough to the said pools that were being delta pressured. It was a little too broad base for that. Another avenue that was possible was putting together a letter of comment, and that was submitted and actually accepted by the OEB and published, though very obscurely. So I put the link to this letter of comment that you can access on the OEB site. It has absolutely no connection to the MOP application that this was all about. But in it, basically, it was asking them for policy changes. Having policies in place will make it simpler and more direct to getting things approved. But the OEB, if nothing else, should be the conscious of the businesses, the utilities, or utility in this case, because they are just out to make some money. That's their primary objective, and every business is like that. So the OEB needs to be that check to say, okay, is it fair to everybody, all the stakeholders involved? And based on what I've learned, the answer is no, it's not. And here's some suggestions that can help you make it fair. Where are we right now? As I said, they have gone ahead and approved it. So we're thinking the few of us that are in on this, trying to develop some social media strategies and put it out there that this is an unfair environment and needs to be fixed. And that will be through, I think, policy placements. So perhaps with some help from some of you out in the audience, we can really build and continue approaching the OEB with, I think, some corrections they definitely need. Thank you very much for listening.